China is facing the perfect storm of debt. Loans are coming due at home, overseas defaults are growing, and China is under pressure to take a haircut on bad debts.
As the economic effects of the pandemic continue to spread across China, one of its most indebted areas is crying out for help. Officials from Guizhou, a landlocked province in southwest China, claimed in a now-deleted online post that their debt problems have become impossible to fix at the local level. The province is now desperately looking for a bailout, with the federal government already stretched tight. Join us as we examine the complexities of China's debt crisis and determine what this latest occurrence implies for the country's economy. The poorest province. One of China's poorest and most indebted provinces has declared defeat in its efforts to sort out its finances and has asked Beijing for assistance in avoiding default. Guizhou, a hilly region in southwest China, has recruited China Cinda Asset Management, a prominent state-owned distressed debt fund, to tackle its urgent difficulties. According to the most latest available figures, its total debt, including hidden debt issued by the government's financing arms, had surpassed 25 trillion yuan or $3.6 trillion by the end of 2021. The Beijing-based firm, one of 4 funds established by the Chinese government in 1999 to process problematic loans from state-owned banks, stated last week that it will deploy a team of 50 experts to the province to prevent and diffuse risks and bail out the real estate market. After 3 years of severe budget controls and a real estate meltdown, China's local governments are saddled with trillions of dollars in debt. Some communities have already reduced senior medical benefits, provoking protests, and other critical services are under threat. Cinda's appointment comes just days after the province of nearly 40 million people made an unusually public appeal to the central government for assistance, indicating that Beijing may be beginning to rescue debt-ridden regional governments in order to avoid potential defaults that could jeopardize the country's financial and political stability. If that happens, it will be a significant policy shift after years of leaving local governments to manage their own financial loads. The Chinese government clearly prefers local or provincial governments to sort out their own debt problems rather than creating a moral hazard by assisting or encouraging them to believe they can offload the problems or be bailed out, said Steve Sung, director of the SOAS China Institute at SOAS University of London. He said that letting a province go bankrupt would be a significant development and potentially unstable. If Beijing is seriously worried about a domino effect, I think it will bail out, perhaps under some disguise, the Guizhou administration. The province's deal with Cinda came as a surprise, as China's finance ministry had indicated as late as January that the central government would not be coming to the aid of local governments struggling with bad debt. The appeal. Authorities from Guizhou Province's Development Research Office stated in a since-removed piece placed on the provincial government website that due to limited financial resources, it's extremely difficult to advance debt relief work, and it's impossible to solve the debt problem effectively by relying on the local government's own ability. The conclusion was formed from data gathered by the office's researchers while assessing some of the southwestern province's most indebted cities, including Guiyang, Zunyi, Beijing, and Liupanshui. The team dug into the cities' debt, investment and financing situations, as well as their industrial development while researching some positive examples and experiences in financially restructuring local government financing vehicles, LGFVs, the go-to platforms for local governments seeking off-balance borrowing. According to the survey, debt has become a major and a pressing issue for local governments in the province. It also stated that the research team will seek intellectual help from the State Council's Development Research Center in order to make practical solutions for fixing Guizhou's financial concerns. As of 12th April, the story was no longer available on the official website, but it had already been cited by a few Chinese news outlets. As a result of its poor credit profile, the mountainous, landlocked province of more than 38 million people has struggled to acquire financing in capital markets in recent years. A weekly hand-picked roundup of social, political and economic stories from China and their global significance. According to a report released on 11th April, by Guosheng Securities, local governments in China often lack the ability to manage their financial problems on their own and require assistance from higher levels of government. The premise of a higher level government rescue is that they need to know the size of the debt more details about the type of debts and the corresponding projects behind the debts, then they can identify the breadth of the obligation in order to provide efficient help, according to the report. Due to budgetary constraints, the chance of a top-down rescue from Beijing is remote, and local governments are being left to their own devices in resolving debt difficulties, despite substantial financial pressure, according to the research. Amid the increased risk of LGFV defaults and an economic slowdown, China's authorities have begun investigating debt restructuring options in some of the country's most vulnerable regions. The Zunyi Road and Bridge Construction Group, the LGFV, in charge of infrastructure construction in Zunyi and other cities in Guizhou province, announced in December that it had achieved an agreement with its creditor banks for a 20-year rollover of loans totaling 15.6 billion yuan, that's $2.29 billion US dollars. According to a January report from Fitch Ratings, this could predict a rise in similar plans, including conversations with banks to cut funding costs. The ongoing problem: such an explicit call for assistance by local administration is exceedingly rare in China, where bad news regarding government problems is frequently concealed. In general, political decision-making in the country is a hazy process. The public request was unexpected because Guizhou officials were anticipated to approach the central authorities confidently. Zhang stated it is unlikely that they would have resorted to such an extreme measure unless they had exhausted all other options. He added that it was responsible to infer that the authorities view Guizhou's debt issue as both very serious and urgent. According to public figures, Guizhou is the country's second most indebted province, trailing only the northeastern province of Qinghai. Most local government liabilities in China are made up of hidden debt issued by its finance arms. Such debt is typically used to pay infrastructure spending and is not reported on regional government financial sheets. According to a recent assessment by CSPI Credit Ratings, Guizhou's hidden debt alone will reach 1.31 trillion yuan by the end of 2021. It was the most recent available estimate. Even with a modest estimate of the province's overall debt burden, the provincial government's total debt ratio might have reached 245% of its fiscal income and 94% of GDP, according to the December report. For the past decade, China's local government debt has been rapidly increasing. Guizhou's issues, according to Logan Wright, director of China Markets Research at Rhodium Group, are the result of a huge post-2008 lending and investment boom backed by China's banks. However, the problem has been compounded by the recent real estate market collapse, which has resulted in a drop in land sale receipts, a crucial source of cash for local governments. According to Wright, the assumption was always that the land sales could increase further or generate adequate financial resources to repay the debt in time. However, the collapse of the property sector last year and the limited prospects for its revival outside of major cities necessitates more immediate assistance. Guizhou's debt problems have already had an impact on the banking system and the overall economy. Guizhou Bank, a government-backed provincial leader, revealed earlier this month that the ratio of bad loans in its property book had risen to more than 20% in 2022, up from 0.8% in 2021. Several publicly traded companies in other provinces have had to write off millions of dollars in bad debt because their clients in Guizhou refused to pay. Micho Ecology and Landscape, a landscaping services company based in Jiangsu and listed on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange, announced in January that a local government-backed enterprise in Guizhou had failed to pay the company 150 million yuan. Shandong Chiwei Industry Development, a Shandong-based gardening firm listed in Shenzhen, also announced in January that it had to write off 700 million yuan due to the inability to collect funds from local governments, multiple of them in Guizhou province. A bailout? Days before Cinda intervened, the country's state assets regulator signed a strategic cooperation agreement with Guizhou's leaders, offering to provide some assistance. In a statement, Zhang Yuzhou, director of the State Council's Asset Supervision and Administration Commission, said the SASAC will encourage and support centrally owned enterprises to collaborate with Guizhou in state-owned enterprise reforms and cooperation between central and local authorities. This is done in order to better serve and protect the overall national situation. The specifics of a prospective bailout are unknown at this time, but Beijing is under pressure to intervene, according to Wright. According to him, the extent of the ensuing market contagion would depend on Beijing's response to the first city or province to default on publicly listed bonds or other commitments. However, Beijing will eventually need to provide some form of financial assistance. There is no other realistic option. So that comes to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and if you want to learn more about China's economy or stay up to date on the latest news, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. If you have any thoughts or views on the subject, please share them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this video. See you in the next one.